How are you planning on spending your Monday, Justin? I was going to get a much-needed haircut, play five-a-side, then watch the Luton v Burnley game tonight. I did not expect to be talking about a managerial departure 4 days into the new season.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you, it's been a busy weekend, first weekend of the Championship. Your head's sort of just 100 mile an hour. It's completely ingrained in it, especially if you're covering it, let alone being a supporter. I was at the gym getting my CrossFit on, and then this.
Where else would you be?
Literally, where else would I be? It was either getting a CrossFit or a coffee, and I had a coffee this morning. Great, went to CrossFit, and then I've got you bothering me saying Ryan Lowe's been sacked. What time are you free? I'm like, oh, for God's sake.
Not sacked, Justin. Not sacked.
Ooh,
mutual consent.
Sorry.
A big difference there.
Yes.
We'll get that sorted out straight away. Here's the statement from Preston, which has come out this morning. Preston North End can confirm that manager Ryan Lowe has left the club by mutual consent. Following discussions that took place on Sunday, the 11th of August, it was mutually agreed that now was an appropriate time for a change to be made.
Appropriate time.
That in a sec. Ryan leaves with the thanks of everyone at the club for his hard work, dedication and commitment. We wish him and his family the very best for the future. For the two upcoming fixtures against Sunderland and Swansea City this week, Mike Marsh, accompanied by Peter Murphy and Ched Evans, will be in charge of the team. Arrangements beyond those two fixtures will be announced next week. Now was the appropriate time for a change to be made, Justin. Why has it happened 4 days into the new season?
There's nothing appropriate about it happening 4 days into the season, is it? It's quite bonkers. Even for Championship standards, it's quite bonkers. I was saying to you pre-recording, I wasn't expecting a managerial departure at least until the end of September, October time. That's usually when things start to heat up. Usually around the international break or after the international break, when owners and chief execs pull the trigger very, very quickly because they start to shit themselves. But this is just next level. He's had all pre-season. He's had pre-season where, squad planning, transfers, everything, targets, a list of targets is drawn up and you recruit to bring them in for the summer. And in one game in, you lose 2-0 to a side who are likely to be battling for promotion, whether that be through automatics or the playoffs. You lose 2-0 to them. Not a great performance, but it's one game in. It's one game in.
It is one game in. The timing is just absolutely mad. I cannot believe that we're here talking about it right now. I mean, there must have been doubts from the club hierarchy at the end of last season or over the summer if it was a mutually agreed decision. So that just makes this whole thing even more mad. Why, if you have those doubts, why would you give a manager the whole pre-season and then pull the trigger one game in? What's changed after a loss to Sheffield United? It's just mad. And look, Preston fans aren't the biggest supporters of Ryan Lowe. I think that's become quite apparent. They've frequently been calling for him to go because they haven't been too impressed with the style of football. That's the main bugbear with them, but there's probably other factors involved here. But if you've got those doubts, why would you wait until after one game in the season? It just doesn't make any sense. It's the worst possible preparation you can possibly give your club.
Yeah, it really is, and this is a hierarchy of Peter Ridsdale and in organisation with the owners who have been very sort of soundly patient with managers. They gave Simon Grayson a lot of time, they gave Alex Neil a lot of time, they probably gave Frankie McAvoy too much time, and they've given Ryan Lowe a lot of time until now, where he's been given one game of the season, and it seems seemingly you'd expect their relationship to break down there, because there's no reason why a manager would go this early unless there's just a breakdown in relationship between manager and hierarchy. It's just a bit bonkers. And then you sort of bring in the context of Alan Brown leaving. You need those new signings who have replaced the outgoings to bed in. Yeah, there's probably a little bit more under the surface here that we don't know.
I mean,
that we won't know for a while.
When a manager goes after one game, there's got to be more that meets the eye. And you're probably right, whether that's down to Ryan Lowe just not being happy with the amount of movement that Preston have been doing over the summer. I imagine that's played some part in this, even though they've done a bit of business, but maybe not as much as he would have liked. But I mean, there's the other factors as well, isn't there? Preston fans just as we say, aren't big fans of Ryan Lowe because of the football. We were saying this in the Zamora time Patreon, weren't we? Extra time over the weekend, that Ryan Lowe's football, when it's getting results, it's fine. You can tolerate it. But when it's not a great watch. And you look at the underlying data from last season, how few chances they created, considering they finished 10th in the end, didn't they? They weren't the 10th best team in the division. I think we can all agree on that. The football's not convincing under Ryan Lowe. So I can understand why Preston would fancy a change, but doing it after one game just blows my mind.
Well, this is why, even if you're, as an ownership, you're tentative going into a new season, at the end of the last season, where you probably think, you know what, now's probably the right time for a change. That's when you make the change, because then you've got a bit of time there to go and recruit a new manager. Now it's, unless they've got a list of targets drawn up already, which, judging by them putting Ched Evans, Peter Murphy, and Mike Marsh in charge, and then sort of leaving it till next week to update on who's going to take further charge of the club, doesn't seem like they've got a bona fide list of targets. They might have people in mind, but they've got to go out and speak to them, etc. There's a whole lot of things they've got to jump through there for that. So yeah, it doesn't seem like they've got that backup plan as such. So as I say, doing it in the summer, you give yourself time, whereas now they've got to rush because they bring in a manager whose style is different or is similar, but the personalities are different. They've got to bed them in. They've got to get the squad used to them as well. And yeah, they just make far more issues than probably it was what it was worth sacking Ryan Lowe.
They haven't sacked him, Justin. It's mutual consent. Come on now.
I'm sorry, but mutual consent. Only one person makes a decision in that cause.
Well, you don't know. You never know, because it may be one thing or another. I did see that Peter Ridsdale has been on TalkSport today talking about what's happened, and while he didn't give too much away, he did hint at the idea that Ryan Lowe enjoyed the Monday to Friday of managing Preston, but he didn't enjoy the Saturday. So whether there's been something that's happened where the kind of the backlash from Preston fans has just been too much, I don't know. I don't want to blame Preston fans, because at the end of the day, they pay for their tickets. They've got their right to voice their concerns. Some people will go too far, and that is obviously wrong. But whether he's just had enough of the criticism from supporters, who really knows? Who really knows at the end of the day? We are doing this fresh off the back of this happening, and we may not find out for a long time what's actually happened here. I suppose the question is, what is next for Preston now, Justin? Because this is essentially a false start, isn't it? When you lose a manager after one game of the season, it's undoubtedly a false start, because it sets everything back that you've been working on throughout the whole pre-season.
Yeah, you press the reset button, and it's never good to do that at this time, because although this is a period at the start of the season, it's a period of people, players settling in, clubs are still recruiting and whatnot. This is a very defining period, because if you get off to a slow start and your ideas aren't quite into a team, it can take you a while to get going, and before you know it, you're 10 games in, you've won 2 or 3 games, and you're struggling. So bringing in a new manager in that time after one game, it's literally the reset button. Their season starts again next weekend, although the season will start again when they bring in a new manager with the ideas to match the squad. So yeah, it's a huge risk by Preston doing it now, timing wise anyway. But the proof will be in the pudding, won't it, when a new manager comes in, and whether they're a success or not. But the next week or two, I genuinely think it's season defining for Preston.
Oh yes, definitely, without a doubt. I've just had a look to see if the bookies have put out any odds yet on who is going to be the next manager, but we are doing this so fresh off the back of this news, Justin, that's not even happened yet. So only time will tell who's actually going to come in. I think with Preston, of course, you are always going to be hampered by the fact that they're not big spenders. Preston are never going to be big spenders. They're too sensible right now, and they don't want to risk the future of the club for them to be, forking out ridiculous amounts of money on new talent. And while that may frustrate Preston fans, in the long term, it's a sensible thing to do. Having said that, I think the squad is there for a manager to at least have a good shot at the top 6. Getting in there will be difficult, but I don't think that's completely out of the question. But it would have to be a pretty inspired appointment for that to be the case. You're looking at like a real gamble, like a Steve Cooper or Kieran McKenna kind of situation. Getting those kind of managers right is a lot easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be fascinating to see where they do go next. I imagine it will probably be a long-term appointment with a view of kind of just getting to grips with the squad this season and then having a proper crack at, pulling something out of the bag next season. Who really knows? I did see on Preston's Twitter in the past 24 hours, Justin, that the WWE champion Cody Rhodes has been pictured with a Preston shirt on. Maybe he fancies a job.
Oh yeah, we could speculate all day with that. That would be pretty exceptional. I'm trying to think of a WWE pun there to throw in.
Do you know Cody Rhodes? You used to watch wrestling, didn't you, back in the day? But you're not as familiar now, are you?
Yeah, Dusty Rhodes' son, Goldust.
Yes.
Yeah, I know Cody Rhodes.
Goldust and Dusty Rhodes are different people.
Are they?
Goldust is Cody Rhodes' brother. Dusty Rhodes is he's from the 80s kind of.
The Rhodes family, anyway.
Yeah, he's their dad.
Yeah. We digress. You could. What I will say about Preston and the managers is they progressively got more miserable over the last sort of 10 years. Simon Grayson very much was a very bubbly character, wasn't he? We've met him personally. We know he's a very bubbly, happy character. Alex Neil had that in him, but mostly very staunch face, very, very flat. Ryan Lowe hated his job. They need to bring in a personality now that's going to not only pick up the players, and this is an area of seriousness, not only pick up the players, but pick up the fans as well, because the fans have had to go through it. The fans have had to have a manager who's almost up against them at times. So they need a manager to come in who's going to, cliche it, galvanise the football club, inspire the football club, and go from there. Personality is important over here than style, I think.
I think Preston fans would appreciate someone who does play a much nicer style of play than Ryan Lowe, for a start. Preston in recent years have always been associated with not necessarily long ball, but direct football. I'm thinking back to Alex Neil, where he was quite direct without essentially
it's organised and structured, isn't it? It's always been organised and structured.
Yeah, so I think Preston fans would like to see a bit more entertainment when it comes to that, because ultimately, as we have alluded to plenty over the past few weeks, Preston have got a lot of mid-table energy. So if they're going to be a mid-table side, I think Preston fans would appreciate a bit of entertainment along the way. So that would be the foremost thing, I think, for Preston fans, just having someone who can give them entertainment and keep them out of danger of anything perilous happening this season. So a bit of ambition wouldn't go amiss either. Someone perhaps who's young and maybe hasn't even had a shot at coaching at this level before. Who knows? I suppose we'll finish off the show, Justin, with a question of what's going to happen next for Ryan Lowe, because he's someone who has delivered progress for Preston over the years. 12th to 10th, whichever way you look at it, still progress. Football may not be the most pleasing on the eye, but I think he's a good championship manager. He is a good championship manager, isn't he? Maybe he could be good. Maybe he could be a very good championship manager if he has more resources to work with. What do you think?
It's interesting because we always sort of say, if he had resources, maybe he could do something. I think he's shown that Plymouth that he's got the capability to push aside to where in the direction he needs to go in. I think would be the best way to describe him, and he's done that with Preston. He's pushed them into a position where they can really push on. I think whether or not he's the man who's in that position yet, or he's ready to make that next step, I don't think he is just yet. He probably needs another job where he's cutting his cloth a bit, and maybe it's a little bit more of a happy environment where he's not up against the fans. Maybe a team with lower expectations.
Here's an idea for you. Here's a shout for you. I'm going to say it quietly. Plymouth.
I don't know if they'd have him back.
I think right now they bloody would.
They probably would, yeah.
After seeing him on Sunday.
They'll take anybody. They'll take Ian Foster back, wouldn't they?
What do you think? Could that potentially happen? Put it this way. If you told me a manager was going to be sat this week and it was going to be a Scouser who was managing a team beginning with P, I said sacked, I apologise, mutually
It's mutually.
departed.
He's not sacked, Ryan. He's not
exactly.
sacked.
If you're going to tell me a Scouser managing a team beginning with P was going to leave a club in the Championship this week, I'm not sure I would have said Ryan Lowe. I think it may have been his former club.
Yeah. I don't think the fans would be. This is the thing with Ryan Lowe. He needs his fans to be on board with him as well, and I don't think the Plymouth fans are going to be on board with him. As Peter Ridsdale maybe alluded to, he's going to hate the Saturday part of his job, isn't he? If the fans aren't very appreciative of his style. But like you said, they need a manager who Plymouth, that is, who has experience of managing a football club relatively well, and Ryan Lowe does have that, so he ticks a box.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I don't want to be, hovering the axe over Rooney's head already, but if the weekend has anything to go by, then I'm not sure how long that's going to last. But yeah, it'd be fascinating to see where he does go. I mean, it is worth mentioning one final point that I think 2 years ago I saw Ryan Lowe being linked with Brighton. Mm-hmm. That goes to show that he has had admirers from elsewhere, outside of Preston, over the years, and I'm sure Brighton weren't the only club who have been sniffing around him at some point. So I don't think he'll be out of job for very long. I think that's fair to say. It will be fascinating to see where he does end up next as well, and how he gets on at a club who perhaps have more resources than a club like Preston. It'd be interesting to see. I think he still has a future at this level, without a doubt, maybe even a high level. Only time will tell. It just depends what the next step is for him, and he's got to make that next step the right one, hasn't he? There we go, ladies and gentlemen. The Championship is well and truly back because we've had a managerial departure after 4 days. 4 days of the new season. My God, this is just so Championship, isn't it? But I wouldn't change it for anything, Justin.
No, it's a beautiful league that brings us into crisis mode at the literally flip of a switch. Even if it's just 4 days into the new season, the Championship draws something up. And is it why we love it? I don't know. It's sometimes why we hate it. It's disturbed my morning.
It's part of the reason why we love it, but considering me and you were both looking forward to having a nice Monday, a chilled Monday, after a long week of making our predictions for the new season, this is one way to just keep us on our toes, I suppose.
It is, and that's what the Championship delivers. I don't know what it delivers. I'm almost disappointed with the Championship right now, but in a loving way.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back again very shortly because we are reacting to the Luton v Burnley game.
Back to the football
tonight. Yep, back on the football. So that'll be in your podcast feeds on Tuesday morning, early hours of Tuesday morning. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Championship, and this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.